Power does not announce itself. It watches. It waits. It allows others to mistake silence for weakness, absence for emptiness, restraint for fear. This is the first illusion the world feeds the knave, that dominance must be loud, visible, desperate to be recognized. In reality, true power operates like gravity, unseen, unquestioned, and inescapable. The mind that understands this does not chase influence. It engineers perception until influence arrives on its own, convinced it was always meant to be there. Dark intelligence begins where moral comfort ends. It is not cruelty for pleasure, nor chaos for rebellion. It is the cold study of human weakness, the acceptance that most people are governed not by reason, but by ego, insecurity, and the hunger to be seen. The Machiavellian mind does not hate this truth. It uses it. It understands that humans are predictable precisely because they believe themselves to be complex, and predictability is leverage. Every social structure is built on invisible agreements: who speaks, who listens, who is valued, who is tolerated. These agreements are not written. They are felt. They are enforced through subtle signals, attention given or withheld, approval granted or denied, presence amplified or reduced to absence. Dark intelligence is the mastery of these signals. It is the ability to manipulate emotional economy without appearing to touch it. To change the temperature of a room without changing your expression. The mistake of the powerless is believing that control requires effort. They over-explain, overreact, overinvest. They reveal their intentions too early and their emotions too often. In doing so, they hand over the map of their inner world. A strategist never offers such generosity. He understands that the mind of another person is a battlefield, and information is ammunition. Silence, therefore, becomes a weapon, not as avoidance, but as pressure. When people cannot read you, they project themselves onto you. Their fears speak louder than your words ever could. This is the foundation of Machiavellian law. Perception is reality, and reality is negotiable. Those who dominate do not argue facts, they shape interpretations. They allow others to believe they have chosen freely, when in truth they were guided through invisible corridors of suggestion. Control is most effective when it feels like autonomy. The ego resists force but welcomes validation. Dark intelligence feeds the ego just enough to keep it compliant, never enough to let it grow teeth. Observe how people behave when they feel unobserved. That is their true character. Most crave acknowledgement more than truth. They would rather be admired than respected, liked than understood. This craving makes them manipulable. When validation is scarce, it becomes currency. When attention is selective, it becomes power. The Machiavellian does not distribute himself evenly. He understands that value is created through scarcity. What is always available is never respected. What can be withdrawn becomes feared. At the center of this philosophy is emotional control, not suppression, but governance. The strategist feels everything and reveals nothing. Emotional leakage is weakness because it hands control to the external world. When your mood is reactive, you are governed. When your identity depends on approval, you are owned. Dark intelligence is the reclamation of internal authority. It is the refusal to let external stimuli dictate internal state. This is why the calm individual in chaos is always the most dangerous one in the room. Human weakness follows patterns. Ego seeks confirmation. Fear seeks certainty. Desire seeks gratification. Dark intelligence studies these impulses without judgment. It understands that people betray themselves long before they betray others. They reveal their pressure points through impatience, vanity, resentment. The Machiavellian does not rush to exploit these weaknesses. He catalogues them, he waits. Timing is not a tactic, it is everything. Acting too early exposes intent. Acting too late forfeits advantage. Precision is the difference between manipulation and mastery. What follows are not rules for cruelty, but laws of psychological reality. They do not care about your intentions. They operate whether you acknowledge them or not. To reject them is to be ruled by those who understand them. To study them is to see the invisible structure beneath human interaction, the silent hierarchy, the unspoken power games, the emotional debts being traded every second. This is not about becoming evil. It is about becoming aware. Awareness removes innocence, and innocence is the most expensive illusion of all. Once stripped away, you are left with a choice: remain a pawn in systems you do not understand, or become fluent in the language of control, perception, and dominance. The following laws dissect the architecture of dark intelligence, not to comfort you, but to sharpen you. Because power does not reward virtue, it rewards clarity. Presence is overrated. It is the refuge of the desperate, the armor of the insecure. The first law of dark intelligence is simple yet devastating: scarcity creates value. The more visible you are, the more expendable you become. Attention is finite, and when it is overextended, it loses potency. To dominate, you must cultivate absence as a strategic instrument. Do not mistake withdrawal for retreat. Absence is not surrender, it is control disguised as indifference. Observe how humans react to what they cannot reach. Anxiety rises, assumptions flourish, and desire sharpens. The ego interprets absence as power, and power is a currency few can resist. In relationships, in social structures, in the corridors of influence, those who vanish strategically become figures of disproportionate importance. Their silence speaks louder than the chatter of the masses. Emotional absence amplifies perception. The mind craves completion, and when the puzzle is incomplete, it projects significance where it does not exist. The dangerous mastery of this law lies in timing. Absence must be deliberate, measured, and unpredictable. Too much, and you are forgotten. Too little, and you are ordinary. The strategist calibrates disappearance like a precision instrument. He removes himself from expectation, from routine, from dependency. He understands that when people cannot anticipate him, they begin to anticipate themselves. They adjust, they obsess, they calculate, and all the while, he observes. Absence also fractures loyalty and exposes true motives. Allies, competitors, and observers reveal themselves when deprived of your presence. Their reactions are unfiltered. Emotional leakage occurs naturally under the pressure of scarcity. People reveal what they value, who they fear, and how much they need you, knowledge you cannot acquire through presence alone. This is intelligence in its rawest form, yet absence is not passive. It is the prelude to intervention. When you reappear, it is with leverage, not apology. Your return reshapes expectations, rewrites the narrative, and re-establishes hierarchy. The illusion of choice is maintained. They believe they have been free, yet every movement they made during your absence was under the quiet gravity of your influence. Master absence, and you become untouchable. Misuse it, and you vanish into irrelevance. Absence is the first key to dominance, for it teaches restraint, sharpens observation, and amplifies perception. It conditions both you and them. It transforms presence from routine into ritual, attention from commodity into weapon. Those who cannot endure absence are already weak. Those who can exploit it become untouchable. The law is simple, yet its mastery is rare. The world rewards the patient, the calculated, and the unseen. In the theater of human behavior, disappearance is the most effective script. Every mind left craving, every ego left anxious, every perception left incomplete serves the strategist. Absence is not nothing, it is power waiting to strike. Every mind carries a reflection it cannot escape the ego. It is fragile, insatiable, and blind to its own cracks. The second law of dark intelligence is mastery over the ego, not yours, but theirs. People are driven by the need to see themselves as capable, respected, admired, and morally justified. This craving is predictable. It can be guided, manipulated, and weaponized. To influence is to hold the mirror at precisely the right angle, showing what they wish to see while concealing what you truly intend. The ego cannot resist validation, yet it fears contradiction. Praise must be measured, strategically deployed. Too much, and it becomes empty; too little, and it incites suspicion. The strategist speaks to the ego in whispers of reflection, reinforcing illusions while controlling perception. Observe carefully. The language of dominance is subtle. It does not confront openly. It seduces the mind to align with your design under the guise of self-interest. People fight to protect the image they are shown, often more fiercely than the truth itself. Ego is also a vulnerability. It blinds, it inflates, it drives obsession. Those who overvalue themselves act predictably. They overcommit, overexpose, and overreach. They hand over leverage to anyone patient enough to study their patterns. The Machiavellian mind exploits this by reflecting the ego selectively. By framing desire as recognition and obedience as freedom, One orchestrates behavior without ever touching force. Control is exercised in shadows, in the quiet architecture of influence. The mirror must also be precise in timing. Ego that is flattered too early becomes suspicious. Ego that is ignored too long resents. The strategist calibrates his interventions with patience measured in days, weeks, or even months. The goal is psychological capture, an alignment of perception where the target believes their choices are autonomous, yet every step has been guided by the careful reflection you provided. Mastering the ego requires restraint. You must observe without reacting, present without dominating, and validate without inflating. The power lies not in confrontation, but in subtle orchestration. Every human is a map of fear, desire, and pride. The mirror of ego allows you to navigate that map with surgical precision. Misuse it, and the reflection fractures, revealing your intent. Use it correctly, and the mind becomes your instrument, dancing to your design while believing it is free. The strategist understands this principle. No one gives power willingly, yet everyone craves it. By feeding the ego, by bending perception through reflection, dominance is not seized, it is granted. And the most dangerous people are those who believe they are in control, while all along they are walking corridors of your construction. The mirror of ego is silent, invisible, and lethal. It is not persuasion, it is orchestration. And orchestration is the essence of unseen power. Fear is the most honest currency of the mind. It cannot be feigned, bartered, or faked. It erupts in uncontrollable reactions, betraying truth where words fail. The third law of dark intelligence is the mastery of fear, not through terror for its own sake, but through precise psychological calculation. Fear is a lens through which humans perceive risk, value, and hierarchy. Those who understand it can predict behavior, manipulate choices, and bend actions without raising resistance. Observe how fear manifests. It thrives in uncertainty, in the spaces between expectation and reality. When people cannot anticipate consequence, their imagination becomes a cage. The Machiavellian mind does not create chaos blindly. It engineers controlled exposure to uncertainty, cultivating tension that sharpens attention and reveals hidden priorities. Obsession follows fear because the mind instinctively seeks to close the gap between anxiety and clarity. In that obsessive search, it reveals its vulnerabilities. Fear also fractures identity. Under pressure, the composed facade of rationality collapses, exposing ego, driven impulses, hidden resentments, and desperate rationalizations. People reveal who they truly are when stakes rise. The strategist observes without judgment. He catalogues reactions as data, measures intensity as leverage, and designs interventions that exploit the predictable collapse of composure. This is not cruelty, it is understanding human mechanics at the level of instinct and reflex. Control through fear is never blatant. Direct intimidation awakens resistance and resentment. Subtle, strategic exposure to possibility, to threat, to the unknown, triggers internal mechanisms more effectively. The target believes they are acting to defend themselves, yet every reaction has been guided by the architecture of your design. Fear becomes invisible pressure, an invisible hand shaping choices, aligning behavior, and reinforcing hierarchy without confrontation. Finally, mastery of fear requires immunity to it yourself. The strategist remains unshaken, a constant in the storm of panic he cultivates. Emotional stability is a weapon. The calm observer amplifies the perception of authority. Others project weakness onto the unstable, but clarity and composure project dominance. In the calculus of fear, the one who measures controls and withstands it becomes untouchable, while the terrified become predictable, pliable, and entirely under influence. Fear, when wielded with precision, is both compass and lever. It exposes value, fractures ego, and compels action. Those who understand it do not demand obedience, they orchestrate it. The mind reacts not to your words, but to the invisible architecture of threat you have constructed. In the silent terror of anticipation, human weakness is exposed, and the strategist who stands apart, untouched and unflinching, commands not through force, but through the irresistible inevitability of perception. Words are cheap. They reveal, they bind, they betray. The fourth law of dark intelligence is the mastery of silence. To speak is to expose the architecture of your mind. To remain silent is to create gravity, to become an immovable force in the room, in thought, in perception. Silence is not absence. It is presence magnified, a psychological pressure that demands attention without motion. Those who fill space with chatter surrender authority to those who do not. Silence is a tool of observation. The human mind, confronted with quiet, instinctively projects meaning, intent, and motive. In that projection lies control. People reveal their desires, fears, and secrets in attempts to fill your void. Every word they utter is data, every hesitation a vulnerability. The strategist listens, catalogues, and anticipates, shaping action while appearing inert. In silence, you are the axis around which others spin, unaware that their motions are dictated by your restraint. The power of silence also fractures perception. The unseen, the unspoken, becomes amplified in value. Others assume influence, intelligence, and dominance where none need be claimed. In the theater of human interaction, the mind is drawn not to what is present, but to what is absent yet suggested. Silence transforms ordinary presence into an enigma, dangerous, compelling, unapproachable. It bends expectation without confrontation, reshapes hierarchy without a word, and enforces authority through omission rather than assertion. Strategically, silence is not passive. It is the precursor to action, the shadow under which calculation thrives. Timing is crucial. Speak too soon and your words lose weight. Speak too late and opportunity slips. The Machiavellian mind balances silence like a scale, measuring anticipation, fear, and ego before releasing any verbal currency. Each utterance becomes deliberate, each pause a strategic strike, each omission a psychological trap. Those who rely on words over restraint become predictable, readable, and weak. Finally, silence is self-mastery. To hold your voice against the impulse to react is to hold your mind against external control. Emotional leakage through speech is weakness, control over expression is power. The silent strategist commands perception, manipulates expectation, and enforces dominance without aggression. The human mind is compelled to fill voids. The empty spaces you leave become the instruments of your unseen authority. Silence is not absence of action, it is the quiet architecture of inevitability. Obsession is not an illness, it is a map of desire, a blueprint of human vulnerability. The fifth law of dark intelligence is the mastery of fixation, both in others and within yourself. To understand what consumes a mind is to understand what can be controlled. Obsession fractures clarity, blinds reasoning, and replaces strategy with compulsion. The Machiavellian mind exploits this fracture, steering focus toward avenues it can dominate while remaining invisible. Humans become predictable when gripped by obsession. The ego seeks validation, the heart seeks attachment, and the mind seeks resolution. All these drives converge into repetitive thought patterns, emotional loops, and compulsive behavior. The strategist identifies these loops as conduits for influence. By subtly guiding attention, feeding desire, and creating calculated scarcity, one bends obsession toward objectives that serve dominance. The target believes they act of their own volition. In reality, they follow corridors you have built without obstruction. Obsession also amplifies weakness. It blinds individuals to risk, inflates the perceived importance of trivialities, and erodes patience. The strategist does not confront obsession directly. He cultivates it. He plants stimuli, manipulates perception, and allows the target to overcommit emotionally or strategically. When the mind becomes fixated, it sacrifices flexibility for intensity, leaving itself exposed and malleable. Yet obsession is a double-edged weapon. The strategist must control its parameters carefully. If obsession becomes awareness of manipulation, leverage collapses. If it becomes all-consuming, the target may break, retreat, or act destructively. Subtlety ensures compliance without resistance. It is a psychological symphony. Desire is provoked, attention is captured, action is directed, all under the guise of autonomy. Finally, the architecture of obsession requires self-discipline. To orchestrate fixation, one must remain untouched by it. Emotional entanglement blinds the manipulator as surely as the target. Internal authority, control over your own impulses, is the foundation upon which all external influence rests. Those who can direct obsession without surrendering to it command not just behavior, but perception itself. They move unseen through the obsessions of others, shaping reality in silence, while the world remains mesmerized by the illusions they create. Secrets are the silent engines of influence. The sixth law of dark intelligence is the mastery of information, the collection, concealment, and strategic deployment of knowledge. Every mind holds fragments of truth it believes private, but human nature guarantees exposure under pressure, distraction, or desire. To control information is to control perception, and to control perception is to shape reality itself. Human interactions are transactions of unspoken currency. Words, gestures, confessions, and omissions all carry value, but the mind most often reveals itself in gaps, what is left unsaid, unnoticed, or dismissed. The strategist observes these voids, cataloging patterns, contradictions, and inconsistencies. Secrets become tools, bargaining chips, leverage points, and pressure levers. The one who knows more controls the narrative, while those who reveal too much hand over authority unknowingly. The strategic handling of secrets requires patience and discipline. They must be revealed sparingly, at moments calculated to maximize impact. Timing dictates dominance. Information released too soon diminishes its power. Information withheld too long breeds suspicion, which can erode control. The Machiavellian mind manipulates both knowledge and ignorance, allowing targets to believe they possess autonomy, while every move is orchestrated by invisible strings. Possession of secrets also fractures trust, loyalty, and perception. People fear what they cannot know fully. They value what they cannot attain. By controlling information, one dictates both fear and desire, admiration and envy, compliance and resistance. Secrets, when wielded correctly, shape behavior without confrontation, alter allegiance without force, and establish dominance without declaration. Finally, the strategist guards his own mind as fiercely as he exploits others. Exposure is weakness. Emotional honesty, impulsive confession, and careless transparency are vulnerabilities that reveal the architecture of thought. In contrast, controlled revelation projects authority, mastery, and inevitability. Knowledge unshared is power, but knowledge selectively revealed is domination. The currency of secrets flows quietly, invisibly, yet its impact is absolute, shaping perception, bending choice, and cementing authority in ways the unaware can never anticipate. Expectation is a psychological trap. The seventh law of dark intelligence is the mastery of anticipation, shaping not what is, but what others believe will be. Humans live in the space between what they desire and what they fear. They are compelled by projections, assumptions, and the invisible pressure of predicted outcomes. To manipulate expectation is to control behavior before a word is spoken, before an action is taken. The strategist understands that people do not act on reality, they act on perception of reality. By subtly directing attention, hinting at possibility, or withholding certainty, one constructs a mental architecture in which others move predictably. Obedience, fear, loyalty, even desire can be guided silently through the pressure of expectation. Every delay, every omission, every glance is a signal calibrated to trigger internal compulsion. Expectation also fractures autonomy. When the mind believes it knows the trajectory of events, it makes choices within constrained parameters. This illusion of control is the most effective form of dominance. The target moves freely, yet every step aligns with a design they cannot perceive. The Machiavellian does not force outcomes, he engineers conditions so that outcomes occur as if spontaneously, while the world remains blind to orchestration. This law extends to self as well. Internalizing the discipline of expectation sharpens strategy. One must anticipate the responses of others, calculate emotional reactions, and manage one's own impulses with precision. Those who are reactive become predictable. Those who project controlled expectation remain untouchable. The strategist walks always ahead in thought, a shadow on the horizon, unseen yet inevitable. Finally, the shadow of expectation is a tool of psychological containment. By managing what others expect, one controls attention, desire, and action simultaneously. The mind under anticipation reveals its hidden priorities, its vulnerabilities, and its compulsion to act. To command expectation is to command the invisible forces that drive behavior, creating dominance without confrontation, influence without negotiation, an authority that is felt, not challenged. In this shadowed space, the strategist becomes omnipresent, untouchable, and absolute. Every human carries within them a fragile architecture of self, a construct of beliefs, roles, and illusions designed to maintain coherence and ego. The eighth law of dark intelligence is the mastery of identity fracture, understanding how subtle pressure, perception, and manipulation can destabilize the very sense of self. When the mind perceives contradiction between its ideals and its actions, dissonance emerges. Chaos follows. And chaos is the ultimate leverage. The strategist does not break identity through violence or humiliation. That is crude and transient. Instead, he guides perception so that the target begins to doubt their instincts, question their choices, and second-guess their values. The cracks appear slowly, almost imperceptibly. A hesitation here, a contradiction there, a whisper of doubt planted like a seed in fertile ground. Over time, certainty collapses, and with it, the ego's resistance. Fear, obsession, absence, and expectation all converge in this fracture. The human mind under pressure cannot sustain multiple competing truths. Desire conflicts with fear, pride clashes with reality, and ambition meets limitation. The strategist observes this internal war, exploiting it without intervention. Every misstep, every overreaction, every desperate attempt to reconcile conflicting impulses reinforces dependency on the manipulator's structure. The target becomes malleable, their choices subtly aligning with the patterns laid before them. Yet identity fracture is dangerous. Overpressure can destroy the target entirely, or worse, awaken defiance. The Machiavellian applies this law with restraint, introducing cognitive tension precisely enough to induce reflection, compulsion, and reliance on the strategist's guidance. The mind under gentle fracture seeks anchors the strategist alone provides. Ultimately, mastery over identity is mastery over perception itself. By understanding the architecture of the self, the strategist manipulates behavior at its source, guiding not just actions, but belief, desire, and loyalty. The fracture is invisible, silent, and irreversible once its patterns are internalized. Those who recognize it too late may never rebuild themselves fully, while the orchestrator remains calm, detached, and in complete command of the unseen hierarchy he has constructed. The final law of dark intelligence is not a strategy applied outward. It is mastery inward. All external manipulation collapses without dominion over oneself. The crown of internal authority is the ability to govern emotion, perception, and reaction with absolute clarity. Those who are slaves to fear, desire, or validation cannot command. They are always observed, always influenced, always vulnerable. To claim internal sovereignty is to render oneself untouchable, an immovable axis around which the chaos of others revolves. Power over others begins with understanding that the self is the ultimate battlefield. Every impulse, every instinct, every emotional surge is a potential compromise. The strategist does not suppress these forces, he integrates them, acknowledges them, and channels them deliberately. Emotional leakage is weakness, composure is authority. Calm in chaos, silence in uproar, patience in provocation, these are the marks of mastery. Those who can maintain equilibrium while the world collapses around them become not just formidable, but inevitable. Internal authority also reframes perception. The world is not chaotic, it is predictable when approached with strategic detachment. Others' fears, desires, and obsessions are data to be interpreted, not problems to be solved. The strategist does not react to provocation, he orchestrates it. He does not yield to impulse, he converts it into leverage. In the theater of human behavior, the mind that commands itself shapes the narrative of all who surround it. This law delivers its harshest truth: humans are inherently weak, ego-driven, and predictable. Those who exploit these truths gain power, those who ignore them are consumed. But the greatest dominion is internal. Once external forces can no longer influence emotion or decision, one achieves the ultimate form of authority. The strategist's mind becomes a fortress unassailable, invisible, and absolute. In this state, every act of manipulation, every exercise of influence, every orchestration of fear, desire, and expectation flows naturally, effortlessly, and without exposure. The crown of internal authority is quiet, relentless, and inevitable. It does not seek recognition, admiration, or approval. It exists as a principle, a standard of control over self and circumstance. Those who reach it understand the uncomfortable truth. Mastery over the world begins within. The ego must bow to reason, the mind must bow to strategy, and the self must bow to clarity. In that obedience, power is absolute, not granted by others, not taken by force, but claimed as a sovereign of the unseen hierarchy, untouchable, unchallenged, and eternal.